Welcome back to the Outer Network podcast. Today, we're joined by Dr. Lisa Hayes, a board-certified pediatrician and the founder of Hayes Pediatric here in the Tampa Bay area. Dr. Hayes is someone who knew early on that pediatrics was her calling, and that really traces back to her own childhood experiences with a pediatrician who took the time to truly know her and her family. That model of care actually stuck with her. She trained at USF, completed residency at All Children's and Tampa General, and spent years in high-volume, insurance-based pediatrics practices, seeing firsthand how rushed visits, documentation, pressure, and lack of continuity can impact families and physicians. She's also a mom of 3 boys, which deeply informs how she practices medicine. She understands the anxiety new parents feel, the overwhelming attitude around sleep, feeding, development, and the frustration of trying to navigate conflicting advice with very little support. Dr. Hayes does things differently. Home visits for newborns, longer appointments, direct communication with family, and a strong focus on education, development, and trust, not just checking the boxes. Today, we're going to talk about what's broken in modern pediatrics, what parents aren't seeing behind the scenes, what prevention really looks like in childhood, and what becomes possible when pediatric care is designed around families instead of billing codes. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back. We are with Dr. Lisa Hayes of Hayes Pediatric. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us. Today we're gonna dive into Tampa's premier pediatric concierge. Welcome.
Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Thanks for taking the time. So a little background. Lisa and I have known each other for a little bit. She's newly started. I think. How long has it been since you've started?
I opened in May 2025, so about 8 months ago.
Wow. May of 2025.
Uh-huh.
How have you been since then?
It's been great. It feels like I've been doing this for a while now, and I'm starting to feel a lot more comfortable in it. And it's been such a great journey that I'm just excited to see, what the future holds for the practice.
Are you planning to grow your practice?
So I had been surprised with how quickly it's grown. So I'm trying to figure out what my next steps are. I definitely still envision it being, a small practice. And I think I may want to bring on another physician at some point. But for now, I really want to invest in the families that I have and the community that I have. So I think that might be down the line, but like a little ways.
When you say invest in the families, what do you mean by that?
I've got a lot of little babies in the practice, and they're gradually getting older. A lot of them are getting in the 6 to 9 month mark. Just planning, events to get those moms together, help them build their communities, add value to their experience with the practice by doing more educational activities too, and just getting to know, each family on a little bit deeper level. Whenever especially for the older kids, like when you're switching over to me, I want to know all that background, and it just takes time to really build those relationships.
So let's say I'm a parent that's about to start off with Hayes Pediatric, and I have a newborn. What does it look like to have, to be a patient of Hayes Pediatric?
Sure. So anytime a mom or a family is interested in starting with me, we always do a meet and greet to kind of talk about, what their goals are with a new baby, what their plans are that they have so far. I let them know more about myself and kind of how I envision things going. When they go to the hospital or whatever their birth plan is, I tell them that I'll see them within 48 hours of discharge. And I go to the house for all my little babies for all their appointments from the time that they go home from the hospital until they're 2 months old. So it's cool. I get to meet their dogs. I get to see their household. I can see how their nursery's set up. I can look at what products they're planning to use for the baby.
That's a brilliant idea. Gosh.
It's there's so many levels to it.
Do you ever go into a house and you're like, you do not need this product or this product or that product?
Sometimes I'm like, oh, you got that at the baby shower. It's still not open. Because I'm not that.
I bet you like baby showers all over the country are probably like, do not invite her.
Probably. I had that hold my tongue a little bit at my sister's baby showers.
Okay, so if you were to walk into one place, can you tell me like the worst product you've seen?
So there's a lot of products for reflux that aren't that great, like the little wedges where you can strap them in. Those are a little intense.
So it's a wedge, like almost like a pillow?
Almost like a pillow, but then they strap them in and you just don't need all that. And they outgrow that so fast. It's just silly. If you're going to do something for an incline, like put something underneath the crib, like nothing soft, and like don't strap them in. They're made to move and groove a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, I'll tell you my experience with when we had our kids, our first baby, I think we had like 1,000 things in our place.
Oh, sure.
Our second baby, obviously we had a quarter of the things that were in there. And we went through every little detail. And I think the only thing we really needed for the first like 2 weeks was like white like baby tops. Like we need 1,000 of those because they're always, for the rest of it, we're like, when do we get to open up all our toys?
Yeah. I'll also come in and they'll have like 60 like newborn onesies. So I'm like, they're going to outgrow that like next week. So you'll need to be up me.
All right. So you go in the house and the first little, the meet and greet, and then you kind of see what's going on with the nurseries and stuff. Has there ever been a point where you caught anything that's concerning, like help them out that way?
I mean, a lot of education happens. Other things that they just need a little education about are like the DockATot, like soft-sided things that some families will put them in the cribs, but that's not really recommended. So I'll usually educate them about like that's okay to use like in the family room when you're there, but let's not put that in the crib.
Does that increase the risk of cysts, from what I understand? Right. Okay. So I remember somebody gifted us that and they didn't put them in there.
So yeah, you can use it like on the couch, like when you're there with them, but just not in the crib.
Okay. All right. So you go through that, and then baby turns 1 month. So then what?
So usually I'm doing that first visit within a couple of days of leaving the hospital. For almost all my babies, I'll come back again in like 2 or 3 days to check out their weight and feeding and look for jaundice. And then I do a 2-week visit and a 1-month visit and then a 2-month visit, or kind of like the typical well visit schedule, like with some other visits sprinkled in if there's something that I'm worried about.
Right. I can't even tell you how much I'm like, man, we could use this.
Parents really appreciate it. And when the grandparents come, they like get such kick out of it. Like sometimes they're there, helping out, and they always like, wow, that's amazing. They're really sweet to me. I love that.
Do ever the grandparents ever like criticize, that's not the way we did it?
No, they're always really respectful. Although, I mean, they do offer a lot of advice that's outdated. So I always say I love the grandparents, but some of the things we gotta like, that's in the past. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I think my mom was like, my mom told us like, if the baby cries and it is like in a month, she's like, just slap it on the hand. But I don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah, just like we don't put like whiskey on the gums for teething anymore.
We don't?
No. Damn it.
So no whiskey on the gums, no hitting the head. Sorry. All right. So the first few months, lots of follow-up. At what point do you feel that you are able to, like, is there ever a point where you have noticed this family or this baby needs a lot more attention and you do spend more time?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we kind of go through that first 2-month period, you can kind of tell, some moms and dads will have more anxiety about, how to feed the baby, or, the baby crying. Crying behavior usually peaks around 6 weeks of age. And some parents really have a super hard time just accepting that the babies are going to cry sometimes, even if you do everything 100% correct. Like there's going to be some times where they cry and they're not consolable. And so kind of talking them through like what are the red flag things, me making sure as their pediatrician that I'm checking off all my boxes, that they're healthy, and then just letting them know like what to expect, what's normal, what's not normal, when to call me.
I know as a parent, and many friends of mine have obsessed over sleep, like baby sleep. What's your advice for baby sleep?
So, I get a lot of questions about sleep, as you can imagine. In the beginning, I think our society isn't super great at like setting parents up for what's normal in the first couple of months. That, they're up every 3 hours or so, and sometimes that can persist for a couple months. Sometimes we're lucky and they like get into a little schedule where it's only like once or twice a night. But some babies, it does take a little bit longer. But I think like our society is like, all right, back to work, especially for the dads. And so I think just counseling the families on this is still a normal thing, help each other out, get outside help if you need it. And then between 4 and 6 months is when we kind of talk about like sleep training. And that's a little different for every family too. I always want families to find a method that they feel comfortable with. Cry it out doesn't work for everybody. And there's also different ways to do that. And so I try to find what works best for them. And I always kind of phrase it as you want to give the baby a little bit of space to learn how to self-soothe. So it's not like leaving them alone and abandoning them, but kind of like giving them an opportunity to work on their skills. And I sometimes when we just reframe it like that, they do a little bit better. And
so self-soothing is just letting them kind of deal with it themselves. Is that right?
A little bit, but a lot of times it's like, giving them a set time frames and coming back and checking and then giving them a little bit longer. And you're never going to abandon them completely. Every mom's like watching the monitor. Yeah. Joe the sound off. But like giving them a little bit of space. If you rush, it's just like you'll find with older kids too. If you rush in at the first sign of distress for every little thing, then they don't kind of develop those skills, whether it's for sleep or other stuff. So like kind of counseling them through what that process looks like for sleep.
So we had when Sophia was a little girl, all our friends were like, you just gotta let her cry it out. And we were very, attached to her, and we would literally hold her till she slept.
Yeah.
And that was just the way it worked for her. And we're like, okay, let's just try it out. And so our routine was to give her a bottle, have her fall asleep, and then lay her in bed. That was like a routine. And one time we gave her the bottle, and we're like, okay, night. And we left her in the room, shut the light off. She cried. She cried for a good hour, like a solid hour. And Nir's like giving me daggers. And I'm like, it's okay. And I'm sitting outside the door, just like, wow, it's going to get better. And I was just sweating like, oh, Adam, it's okay. And this is before like the cameras in the room. And I'm like, oh my God, please be bed. And then she stops crying. And then she starts coughing. And we're like, what's going on? And Nir's like, I'm going in there. She had vomited all her milk up everywhere. I was like, all right, we failed. Kept her, did the same thing until she was 1.5. Oh, no. And she would tell me every day, you remember that last time you did it? Yeah, it didn't work out.
And sometimes that's a journey, and that's okay too.
Yeah, I know.
But it's okay too. It's tough.
So we've got, obviously an intense amount of time, dedicated focus from 0 to 6 months. How about like 6 months to 1 year, 1 year to 2 year? Does it decrease in frequency?
So our typical well visit schedule, most pediatric practice will see them at like 2, 4, 6 months. I see them every month until 6 months, and then 9 months and 12 months, 15 months, 18 months, 2, 2.5, and then 3. And then after 3, just once a year. Although for a lot of my families, I do like a little check-in or a second check kind of at 6-month intervals, especially if they've got any chronic conditions going on. The frequency might be more quickly.
What kind of chronic conditions?
Well, like asthma, allergies, eczema, those are probably the things that I see most commonly. If there's like developmental delays or something like that, I want to check in on more often. Or they're getting, recurrent ear sinus infections, I might want to check them back a little more, make sure there's not some residual fluid in their ears.
Right.
But I like to be hands-on with my patients. In fact, if I don't see them for too long, I kind of miss them. So, not that I ever hope anything's wrong, but I want to get checked in. And for the teens especially, I'm a new practice, so I'm still kind of figuring out how I want to do things, but I've been doing like a mid-year follow-up with the teens virtually, unless they want to do it in the office. And I really have enjoyed that because we'll do it virtually. They can take the phone, in a quiet place in their house, so we can kind of talk through like, hey, it's the new semester, like how's school going? How are your friends? How's gymnastics? How was your holiday?
Yeah.
So it's fun to kind of check in and build that rapport, because for the teens, if I only see them once a year, and they don't know me well, the odds are they're not going to be comfortable talking to me about some of the more serious stuff that's going on. So building that rapport with them is really important to me.
Yeah. And so regarding the screening of mental health or even developmental delays, how do you approach a situation where you were suspicious or concerned without, causing undue anxiety to a family member?
So you always have to approach it carefully, obviously, but I think just asking kind of open-ended questions about how they're feeling, and then, you want to, if there's things that teens disclose to me that are sensitive and that they may or may not want the parents to know, I try to work with them and empower them to talk to their parents about it as well. And then form a plan together. And, it might be a little bit different for each family. For the toddlers and developmental delays, obviously that's hard, especially if the parents don't kind of have a little bit of background or know, like, it's not a concern that they brought up themselves. But I think that there's gentle ways to do it, and also letting them know that you're not saying that anything major is wrong, but sometimes we need a little extra help, to get over hump developmentally, and investing in those things now, can be beneficial for them in the future, kind of keep them on track in the future.
When we are thinking about, your journey of from where you were to where you are, can you give me a little bit of understanding of what brought you to this point right now?
To doing pediatrics or doing DPC?
Well, first pediatrics. I'd love to hear Kate. And then DPC.
Yeah. So I think a lot of pediatricians feel the way that I did, where it was kind of always like pediatrics or nothing for me in terms of medicine. When I went into medical school, I always knew I wanted to do pediatrics. And I think it comes from having a pediatrician who was really, really helpful to me growing up. I grew up locally. I grew up in the Palm Harbor area, and my pediatrician was in Clearwater. Shout out to Dr. Jean Bennett. But she was actually, Jean Bennett, she was actually the first woman to graduate from University of Florida School of Medicine. So super cool talk. And I was born a little early. I was a 34-weeker. And it was the 80s, so things were really different. There was no transition nursery or NICU that I stayed in. There maybe it existed, but I wasn't there. They just sent me home, and I was all jaundiced, my mom tells me, and she just brought me in to see Dr. Jean, every day for who even knows how long, probably like a week. And my mom's like, yep, she would just sit there and she'd rub your little shoulders and talk to me about you and everything. And obviously I got through the jaundice and whatnot. But she was so helpful to my mom. And my mom would drive probably like 30 to 40 minutes from where we lived, like in North Pinellas, to Clearwater to see her. And I went to her office. She retired when I was a teenager, but I went to her office, and she told me I can keep on going there until I was married or until I was pregnant. But when you go to medical school, sometimes those things happen a little bit later. So I remember one time I went, and I was standing in line to check in, and I saw a girl in front of me, and she was just a little bit older. And I was like, oh, she still goes here. So it's okay that I still go here. I think I was 23. She still goes here. It's okay. And then I saw her child walk up. I was like, oh, it's time. It's
there an episode of Friends when Roscoe says pediatrician? That was you.
It was me. But the pediatricians, they're so friendly. They have all your records. It was hard for me to let go. And she helped me a lot in my teenage years too. That doctor personality, type A perfectionist. I had to let go of a little bit of that, and she kind of gave me permission to, my Dr. Jean, she kind of helped me move with some of that stuff. My mom would say it, but it felt different coming from her. And so I really strive to be that type of pediatrician. That's also know you.
Did you have anyone in medical school who really inspired you into pediatrics?
As soon as I started, I knew pediatrics was it. I loved my newborn rotation, seeing the newborns in the hospital. I was blessed to have a great mentor in residency as well who did, outpatient pediatrics. So I often think to myself, like, what would she do when I come up with like clinical situations or like how to communicate with patients? I try to think of like how she would have handled it.
And she was here at USF?
Yep, she was here at USF.
Awesome. So, like, your experience with them was good. Residency, where was that?
I was at USF, and we did our rotations at All Children's, which is now Johns Hopkins All Children, and Tampa General. So I had really good, like, really nice hospital systems both sides of the day and very different.
Right. So can you, I've always, because I actually don't know the hospital systems. What's the from a medical standpoint, difference between Tampa General Pediatrics versus All Children's Pediatrics?
Sure. So All Children's, for people that don't live locally or even do but aren't aware, it's a very large freestanding children's hospital. They have a great pediatric ICU. They have a great neonatal ICU. They have a lot of subspecialists that, see patients in offices, all around the hospital. Tampa General, it's a great hospital, but not like peds focus. Like they have a pediatric floor. They have a pediatric ICU also. They do more trauma and burn, I would say, than All Children's does, or at least at the time.
So it's trauma focused.
Yeah.
It's more an adult focus, but there's some trauma related stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And probably surgical specialties.
Surgical specialties. I would say All Children's probably had more of that at the time.
I see.
Yeah.
Did you ever see, is there a strong oncology focus out there as well?
They have a small oncology program at Tampa General. They had a whole oncology floor at All Children's, so I'd say we got more exposure to that at All Children's, but we got some at TGH too.
Okay. I don't know, did you ever rotate through Moffitt or even?
No, Moffitt doesn't really have much for pediatrics.
Well, that's actually. So, I guess that makes sense. More adult focus, yeah.
Yeah.
So the residency was, at two different spots, very varying degrees of experience. Anything ever stand out to you that was like a real strong story or strong experience where you're like, I'm so glad I'm in this, or anything that ever questioned your
in terms of like being pediatrics? Yes. I mean, there's so many great stories. I think we all have like lots of patient experiences that we think of that, make us glad that we're in medicine. One that I think I'm always amazed by how resilient pediatric patients are and like how far they can come. You can take care of them in the hospital and they'll be so sick. And then you'll see them a couple months later and they're like off running around with their friends and you're like, oh my gosh, you were so sick. So I had a baby at Tampa General who had a difficult delivery and had some hypoxic injury. And they did the cooling blanket and everything like that. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
And I feel like at the time it was one of the newer things that we were doing in the NICU. And I remember that, the parents, at the bedside, they were crying. And then they were really, really devastated. And it's so uncertain what the recovery or like what the, development's going to be like after that. And then I was walking outside of Tampa General, maybe like 6 or 9 months later, because like you do your 1 month rotation, so I rotated off the rotation and didn't hear like the full extent of how his recovery was going. And then I was walking to my continuity clinic across the street, and the dad walked by, and he had the baby in his arms, and he was doing really so well, and I was like, pizza.
Yeah, that's pizza.
I also feel that all the time when I have my little, especially in their primary care, parents will send me like pictures of their toddler who's like, my it's called Dr. Lisa.
Yeah.
Like that they ask me when they're sick, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. Then after residency, what did you do? What was your...
Yeah, so my first job out of residency, I worked for a really big corporate practice locally over in Riverview. And I was really grateful for that experience because it was such a big practice. They let me do like an alternative schedule where I worked like 3 really long days and then I had 2 days off each week. And we were just starting to grow our family. I was pregnant with my firstborn at that time.
And you have how many kids?
I have 3 boys now.
3 boys.
Yeah.
How old are they?
They're 11, 8, and 5.
So
and the
11-year-old is
cooking.
So you graduated around 2016,
2014.
2014. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then so you had had your first job.
Had my first job. It was, higher volume. So I saw a lot, and I'm so grateful for like kind of those years that I did see so many patients because it allowed me a lot of learning opportunities. But the volume, it gets to you. I would kind of finish the days and I would be like, who did I all see? Did I spend enough time explaining that diagnosis? Did I listen long enough? Should I have had them come back? And a lot of times I would have them come back in just a couple of days to like make sure everything was going smoothly to try to offset the fact that I only had like 10 to 15 minutes with them. So I worked at that practice for 7 years. But toward the end, and especially like I had all my boys when I was at that practice. So especially toward the end, I just felt like, I'm like, this is not like the type of care I would want to get. And, I was having nieces and nephews that were being born, my sister's children. And I was like, this isn't the kind of care that I want them to get. And I referred them to a great colleague of mine who's a pediatrician, but, they would call me sometimes and be like, oh, we can't get in. Can you just come over and like check this one's ears? And I try not to treat my family because it's hard to be objective. But I could see that for them and for lots of parents, like it was just a struggle to not, have communication with your pediatrician or not be able to get in when you needed it. And that there was a need there.
Right. I work with a lot of residents, and a lot of times we talk about career development, and sometimes a lot of the guys are like, I don't want to see so many patients. I don't want the volumes. And I keep telling them, like, when you're out of residency, you should see volume. Like, volume is super important. And you can argue about, whatever finance issues there are. Yeah. But the reason why volume is so important is that you need experience. And I mean, let's be honest, residency gives you so much experience, but it limits it. And you can't have a 10-year residency. So volume is helpful for training.
Yeah.
So I imagine when you left your practice, you were ready to go anywhere. So where'd you go next after that?
So I was feeling the pull of like doing something different, and I had started kind of like looking into direct primary care and reaching out to some of my colleagues who were in Ohio and California, and they were doing direct primary care there, and I could see their practices on social media. I was like, wow, that looks so cool. But a good opportunity kind of came to me to join a smaller physician-owned practice in St. Pete. So I went there for 3 years, but it was still kind of like, the same. The appointments were short. And I just couldn't kind of like do all the things that I wanted to do. So it worked out for a little while. But I still felt that pull. So eventually I kind of separated from them in January last year. And then
2025. You took a few months and tried to figure it out.
Yeah. I went to a pediatric direct primary care conference in February, and really that was such a good experience. So if anyone's considering,
where is this again?
That one was in Vegas. It was the Pediatric DPC Mastermind. They have another pediatric DPC conference, which is like the one for this year. What's going to be in April in Savannah. So I'm definitely going to go to that again, because that speaking with the other, it's just pediatrician focused, but speaking with those other docs and kind of learning about their experiences starting their practice was so helpful. So I came back from that conference in February, pedal to the metal, ready to get everything set up. And at first I was like, oh, maybe I'll have, I was so excited to get it going. And I definitely could have kicked the can down the road and opened a couple months later, but I feel like you just have to pick a day. This is the day, and go.
So true. Near and I, when we were opening our clinic, we had nothing open and ready. And we're opening the door. No matter what, we're opening the door.
Yeah.
And she used to be like, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going into work because we had no patients. Yeah. And she'd be like, you have to go to work. And what's really interesting is that's when Dr. Allie Grope, was opened the door, because it was one of those days I was like, I'm not going in.
Did she just walk in?
She just walked in. Yeah, she had a basket.
Amazing.
And that's where our relationship behaved, because...
and now we're because of that.
Yeah,
she showed up to work.
That's right. Allie walked in, and when Allie came in, I can't tell you how great we felt. She was the first, person knocked on the door, opened the door, and we're like, come sit. And we like sat with her for like an hour. But that was so important of just keeping the door open, being there, setting the date. It was so important.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think that that's true. There's like a quote, I don't remember who said it, so maybe we can look it up after the fact, but it was like, make it exist and then make it good. And so I feel like I kind of like, it was pretty good from the get-go, but I did like what I needed to do, and then I'm kind of always improving it, but you just have to like keep that plunge. And then like, even if you think nothing's going to happen, like I was doing a meet and greet at a coffee shop in South Tampa, and a woman came up to me and was like, oh, what kind of doctor are you? Because I had my scrubs on. And I ended up talking to her, and she had a lot of other great connections with doctors in the community. But if I wouldn't have been like out and about in my scrubs, I would have not had that connection either. So I think just being out there doing your thing, you never know what'll happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just so important to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because of our clinic, we tend to be like in the clinic.
Yeah.
But you don't have a standalone clinic, or you have now? Or
So I do. I did just exclusively house calls from May until July, just to kind of like get the ball rolling a little bit. Like I said, I was really excited, and I had families from my previous practices that were interested, and I didn't want to leave anyone hanging. So I did a couple months of just house calls, and then I partnered with Dr. Grob with Modern Dermatology. So I have one, office that's kind of set up like a living room where I got toys and snacks. And for all my meet and greets, I either do them there or virtually. And then I do all my baby visits when they get to the age where they're coming to practice. I do those in there, and my toddlers too. For my older kids, and if I'm doing procedures at all, I use like more of a traditional exam room style. But the rest of them, we just do a fresh blanket on the floor, and we're on the couch in there. Because I want them to feel comfortable. Like, I don't need a exam table necessarily with the paper and all that. Like I want them to lay down, put their head on mama's lap, and I'll check their belly, and
I love that about your clinic. Like I've seen your room, and you have that like colorful carpet on the ground, and then you have like a chair. I think that's for you, and like that's it. Like it's just a little couch, and it's so. I actually thought it was somebody's living room when I saw the picture, and then you see it is, but that's the office, yeah. So it's super, and then there's little blocks all over, and the kids. But it's so welcoming. It's well thought out. I really admire that idea. So now the DPC drive was there. You've got an idea of where you want to go. Where do you see yourself? Because DPC, in my opinion, is going to be like concierge, extraordinary growth. I think it's going to be a mainstay in the city, the state, if not the United States.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in like 5 years?
So I definitely agree with you that I think direct primary care and concierge style practices are going to be booming. I get a lot of inquiries, and I'm happy to speak with other physicians that are, interested in opening their own practices. So I definitely think the momentum is there. And then I think that the families want this. There are questions all the time in like the mom groups on Facebook that I'm in, like looking for recommendations for, adult direct primary care concierge docs, and for kids too. And so I think that I feel proud that like we're kind of at the forefront of all of that. And I think it's going to keep on growing. For myself, I'd love to bring on another partner and kind of grow this practice. I don't see this being something where I'm opening Hayes Pediatrics all over the place, because I don't know. That's just not, I don't think that that's my goal. But I'd like to bring another doc in at some point, and I'd be interested in kind of consulting with other docs as they open their practices. I think docs were great in terms of helping me. So I want to kind of bring that forward too, and help us kind of all reclaim like the type of doc I'm going to want to be, and reclaim medicine a little bit.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
So I imagined, and just knowing our interactions in the past, not only are you Dr. Hayes, pediatrician extraordinaire, Dr. Hayes businesswoman, but you're also Dr. Hayes' mom. And so how much of the time of the work does it take away from your, do you feel like you have more time, or do you feel like you are balancing out or less time?
It's just different, I think, than it used to be. So now that I have my own practice, I can take them to school every day. I can pick them up every day. I can go to all of their, class breakfasts and field trips and stuff like that. Whereas I wouldn't have been able to always before, just because it would have meant like, taking you sometimes for the field trips and stuff, you don't know about it. And so like kind of, only a couple weeks before, and with my old practice, we were making the schedule like 3 months in advance. So I wouldn't always know. But now I feel like even it hasn't happened yet, but even if I did have to call a patient up and be like, hey, it's my kid's field trip, like, can we reschedule to a different day? Like, I don't think they would mind at all. Everybody's very respectful of my family time. I do sometimes have to respond to my acute messages like after dinner or, when we're out and about. So there's a little bit of that. And my kids, like, they're like, you're being phony. If I am one of them, I'm responding to messages too much. So
Right.
They'll call me out. But to me, that, doing that in the evening from time to time, or like I had to take a phone call when we were at practice the other day. I don't mind doing that because it allows me so much other time to be with them. And I think I'm still learning because I think that I'll get better and more efficient at some of this stuff. And I think in the long run, it'll allow me a lot more time with my kids.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So you don't anticipate multiple franchises of Hayes Pediatric or kind of around Florida, but you're hoping to grow within your practice and whatnot?
I'm hoping to grow within my practice. One other, this is a long-term goal, so I don't even know if this can happen in 5 years. But one other part that's been kind of near and dear to my heart and I've been thinking about a lot is, sometimes I do feel a little bit guilty doing direct primary care, concierge medicine, and not taking care of some of the underserved community. And in my previous practices, I had a lot of kids who were part of the foster care system. And kind of like the foster moms would all talk amongst themselves. And I think that I kind of got a lot of referrals within those networks because they knew that I would be kind of sensitive to what they were going through. I always try to really speed up any referrals so there's some specialist because I didn't know exactly how long they were going to have with that family or if they're going to get reunified. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So something that I'd like to do in the long run is have a nonprofit organization affiliated with the practice where I offer to take care of some of those foster children, free of charge, so that way they can get this type of care.
Yeah, I struggle with that too because, at being a hospitalist, adult hospitalist, your primary half of your patients are either over the age of 60, 70, or they're underprivileged, and so you learn to take care of a large group of varying populations, and it's not that I don't want to give. It's I had to find a way to do it because in concierge you can't take Medicaid, in the state of Florida or in the United States you can't accept it, so you have to find ways to help.
Yeah, and
there's lots of avenues to help, and I think a nonprofit sounds great, or even opening up a free clinic of some sort, at some point, but. The way I see it for us, as soon as our feet are steady and, then we can consider doing it.
Yeah. Got to build a foundation, but that's a goal that I hope that I can kind of bring to fruition in the next 10 years.
All right. So got a ton of understanding of this. So now I want to know a little bit about the day-to-day work. Okay. And so taking care of concierge patients and DPC patients, the patients in particular, the parents, I imagine, are very educated about, their goals, their values. So how do you handle situations where parents' values are very strong, may not coincide with today's medicine, or how do you handle those sort of situations?
Yeah, so I would say there's so much information available on the internet, and some of it is evidence-based. And I think both of us were always trying to practice evidence-based medicine. But sometimes families do come in with different ideas. I try to really work with them on the things that I can, and then educate them on the things that I can't. Because there's some things that they're gonna do that this probably isn't going to help, but it's not going to be harmful in any way. And in those in those circumstances, I really try to let them do their thing. But then there's the other stuff, right? That's going to be like, this could be have a negative impact on your child's health if we go down this path, or, going down this path will, cause a condition to persist longer when we could, do something different and treat it sooner. So I think just offering like flexibility on the things that you can and being firm on the things that you can't. And my families, I think pretty early on will kind of see that like, oh, Dr. Hayes is putting her foot down on this thing. Like she must really like be serious about this, because they know that, when I can kind of come alongside them in their idea that might be a little different than what I would do, I will. But then there's going to be some stuff that I'm really firm about. So I think just kind of being flexible where you're able, but firm when you need to be.
So true. I keep, Dr. Parker and I, Dr. Parker's are my co-host of this and my very good friend, and him and I talk all the time. And one of the things we keep re-emphasizing is you got to be true to the medicine. Like it's so easy to get swayed in business and thinking like, oh, the hottest trends, but that's not what you were taught, not what you learned. You spent years and years learning this stuff. Like staying true to your medicine is really, really important. And it's super challenging in today's world. So when like recently there's the vaccine schedules that change, how does it change your practice?
So I feel fortunate that I'm in the position I'm in with the practice where I have a lot more time to spend on education. I honestly can't imagine how my colleagues in its standard practice are handling it, because in addition to doing, all the typical like well visit, exam and the well visit counseling and, feeding and all the other things, to have the time you would need to really talk in depth about the vaccines, like you can't do that in 15 minutes. There's just no way. So I feel fortunate that I have the time that I can really talk to families. I always try to figure out like what hesitations they may have as far as, the vaccine schedule goes. Because I think that that's really important, what their worry is specifically. And sometimes they don't have a specific worry. It's just kind of like a feeling of discomfort or a feeling of fear. And so we talk a lot about, those emotions and how sometimes our emotion might feel one way, but if we look, objectively, this is the data, and I try to show them. And I think patients, so many families that I meet with, they just want what's best for their baby. And first-time parents in this day and age, it's like an unprecedented time where the CDC is recommending something different than the American Academy of the Pediatrics. They're just like, which one is right? Why do they not agree? Like, they don't understand. They never looked at this maybe ever before they got pregnant with their baby. So they want to do what's right. And they really just need guidance. And so I try to be patient with them, address their concerns specifically and kind of help them get through the noise, because there's so much out there that's, just inaccurate and unsafe.
So there's Tylenol noise, American Academy of Pediatrics noise, vaccine schedule noise. How do you deal with the noise?
I mean, that's a very valid question. I'm grateful for the community I have of other pediatricians that practice this way. I really try to be educated about like all perspectives. So if there's like books that are coming out or podcasts that are becoming popular, even if it's not something that I agree with, I'll try to like listen to it a little bit or kind of like get familiar with it, because I want to know. And I always ask my patients too, if it's clear that they're following something that's different from what I'd recommend. I'm always like, where are you getting this information? Not that I want to, come after them or anything, but I want to know, what is getting traction with the families that I'm taking care of, so that I can tell them like, hey, this isn't really right, and this is why. But if I don't ever, open my eyes to what they're listening to or, what they're looking at, then I'm always going to seem really far away from what they're doing. So I try to really stay on top of it. The American Academy of Pediatrics, I think, is doing a really good job and trying to get appropriate word out there. So I refer patients there. I also love the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. They put out a lot of really good information, and I try to share with families too, like, if your child was super, super sick, like if they were super sick and you needed really good care, like where would you go for that information or that type of care? And I feel like it would be hospitals like Johns Hopkins All Children's. It would be hospitals like Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I always tell them because I don't think they know. It's like the Harvard. It's like the Mass General for pediatrics. And so they've got a great website that shares a lot of good information. So I try to refer them there. It's a little hard to refer them to government websites at the moment just because there's so much kind of controversy. So I try to stay out of it as much as I can and, get them good resources.
Do you ever get pushback from patients, family members saying, we don't trust this or we don't trust that from like the resources that you may have provided?
Yeah, I mean, definitely do. And then I try to find out what resources they trust. And some families, honestly, like they won't be a good fit for me. Or I will be a good fit for them. You know what I mean? I really don't turn anyone away because I just like from my own spiritual background, I just don't believe in turning families away if they want to see me and they want to care for me. But I might not be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. But I'm here and I'm willing to talk through the questions that they have and be respectful about it.
I never understood that feature of this concierge or DPC world, which is, sometimes you're not a good fit. And I didn't know that. Dr. Parker is the one that taught me that. Because, from a business perspective, and from a hospital perspective, you never turn anyone away.
Right.
And I would never want to turn away any patient.
Right.
But some patients' values are different and they would not necessarily like the information I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And so in that case, I'm not a good fit for them.
Yeah.
And I have to respect their values and their wishes and finding different process with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever had to deal with anything like that?
I have. So, I do the meet and greets with every family. And I would say when it's not a great fit, usually we can both tell. And they've been, honestly, like I'm I don't like confrontation, certainly. I'm a pediatrician, like I'm pretty happy, and I don't ever like to, I don't want anyone to have a bad experience in their interaction with me. But there's going to be times where I'm not the fit for them. And in those experiences, usually they know too. And so I'll offer them recommendations or practices that I think might be more aligned with what they're looking for. And I always offer too, if they change their mind later, or they want to talk about it in more detail, in the future, I kind of try to not ever shut that door, because I really believe that all children should have access to evidence-based medicine. That's why I try not to really turn anyone away. But there's times where it's obvious that I'm not the best fit for them, and I don't want them. The worst thing would be to be like a new parent and, every time you are interacting with your pediatrician, you're having negative feelings about that. Like, sure, I don't want that for them.
Right.
Probably don't want that for me either.
Right. Absolutely. So, you've gotten quite a bit of following, and your expected time for maybe bringing on a physician in a short period of time. Yeah. In the meantime, like, how do you handle your day to day? There's patients coming. What does a normal, typical day look for you?
So usually I get up really early. I go to the gym. Staying physically active is really important for me because I'm trying to practice what I preach with all my families and teens. And then I take the kids to school. Go to the office. I'm usually there about 8:30. I usually schedule my first patient at like 8:30 or 9. I see on average, like 2 to 4 patients a day. It's not very many, but I usually will schedule them for like an hour to 2 hours, depending on everything. And then there's a lot of follow-up with subspecialists and administrative stuff that I like to try to fit into. Like anytime I refer to a subspecialist, like neurology or ENT, I communicate with them directly so that they know, what I'm looking for, and I'm up to date on the plan of care. So there's a lot more of that I do now than I ever did in my previous jobs. But yeah, it might be like a sick visit for a sore throat. It might be, a 6-month well check, maybe a meet and greet in there too. And then I try to get everything done that I can within the time frame that my kids are at school. So from like 8:30 until about 2:30. And then 2 days a week, I'll do like a longer day where I might either come back to the office. Sometimes the kids come with me.
Sure.
And they've gotten better at it. The first couple of times we did that, it was a little bit of a mess. But now they'll sit in the back and do their homework, or have our nanny come get them. And then I'll do like well visits for the school age kids in the evening. I also do ear piercing, and so sometimes I'll do an ear piercing for a school age kid in the like 4 o'clock time.
Nice. So your one kid plays hockey, is that right?
2 of them play hockey,
And that's at Power Bowl here.
I know at TGH Icebacks.
Icebacks. Okay, very nice. So, how's the season going?
It's good. It's good. I mean, we play a lot of
You're telling me I'm missing a game right now. So your one boy is in 10U or 12?
My oldest is in 12U. The other one is in 10U.
And they're both travel?
No, the oldest one, he does like the tournament team.
Okay.
So we don't have to go to like, Minnesota, Winnipeg.
Yeah. We're going to BC next week, so.
He would love that. But he's still young, and he also plays baseball and flag football. So like we are
He travels. You guys do a lot of travels. Like
we're already pretty like big in the sports. And I've talked to actually some of the Lightning players about the boys and their sports. And even they said like just let them play and have fun. So I figure if he like continues to be serious about hockey, we'll probably do like more of a real travel team in the future. But right now, I just like keeping them active. That is my whole parenting strategy. Trying to bring them out.
So there's a reason why I bring up the hockey thing, because you're a pediatrician. Both of us have our kids in hockey, and the reality of like injuries, concussions, it's very real.
Yeah,
especially with the sports here in Florida, I feel are very uniquely aggressive. This child sport process. What's your perspective on it?
So I get asked that a lot, actually. And I had another friend inquire with me recently about what's something that people would be surprised that you do with your family as a pediatrician. And I said play sports like football and hockey. But honestly, I think that the physical activity is so important to their development. And I know like he could probably get into a sport that the risk of concussion and things like that is less, but he loves hockey. He loves it. And so we've got great coaches. I really think we spend a lot of time with them kind of explaining, how to pray appropriately and defensively. And the biggest injuries that my kids have had have not been in the hockey rink. We had a pretty gnarly facial laceration for my oldest that he got just playing like random football at a birthday party.
Yeah.
And it required like a plastics repair, like everybody intense. And it healed really nicely, but I'm like, I can't keep you in a bubble when you are a physical boy. I would rather him, learn all the other benefits that he's learning through hockey, like teamwork and respect and sportsmanship, all that other stuff that he's learning. And if he's going to get injured, we'll handle it appropriately, but I'm not going to take that away from him. So that's something he enjoys.
I just a little experience about my son's been playing on a team right now, and they were there was a lot of like differing kids, and like he had some friends on it, some new friends, and like halfway through the year they still just weren't gelling because there's older kids and younger kids. In the past few weeks, they've all become friends, and even the ones who were very strongly opinionated, and like you just see them bond together and learn how to play together and respect one another. It's humongous. And as a family, you're watching it like play out in real time, and you're like, this is worth every travel, every flight I had to take. It was worth it. So I wholeheartedly agree. People ask us all the time, like, why do you spend so much time traveling and doing all this hockey when you work so much? And my argument is, trust me, it's not for me, it's for them. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, they learn a lot of values, I think, through team sports, and we as parents do try to talk about some of those things off the ice and whatnot too. But that's great that you have that experience. I feel similarly about it as well.
So so they play baseball as well and football?
We're like on and off a little bit with everything, but we just signed him up again for baseball. Our oldest and then our youngest are doing baseball, and then my oldest is also doing flag football. And he did tackle football in the fall, which that was our first time doing tackle. And I was, I was with hockey. I was a little nervous about that. But with flag football, as they're getting older, I'm almost more nervous when they're playing flag football. And we've got a great team. When he was doing tackle with like former NFL players that are coaching.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were, like have taught him, how to control your body when you're getting tackled or be defensive in your play.
Oh, wow.
And so I think I'm doing the best looks you can.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the nice thing about Tampa is like, the coaching. Like the coaching, you'd be like, well, this NHL guy is coaching our son, and this NFL player is coaching, and you're like, wow, like the quality coaching is incredible. I agree. And yeah, they're like, vacationing and retiring out here, but they have great teaching, so it's nice that way.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, so we're gonna ask just a couple more questions, okay? And I want to ask you about the the physician or the pediatrician burnout. Now, obviously, I think that you are in the transition out of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But were you feeling that burnout experience prior to coming to DPC?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely, yes. Probably the most in my first job just because of that, like, super, super high volume. I was fortunate in that I only worked 2 days a week since we had my second son. So I could, like, work really hard for that one day and then, like, the next day kind of, like decompress a little bit. But I honestly can't imagine what it would be like to work, like, a full 4 or 5 days a week on that schedule because at the end of the night, I would just come home and I would be like, hey, my brain would be jumping all around all the patients that I saw all day. And you feel like tense, like in your body when you get done with that because you just have been talking to so many people and like absorbing a lot of emotions from, what all these different families are going through. I love being a pediatrician, but it was too much. I definitely, and the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me with my previous practices, they changed our EHR. We were on like it was an EHR that was from a tiny company that was like very specific to our practice. So it was like minimal clicking. Like I was done with my charts in the room and then I would go home and they switched to ECW, okay, Clinical Works. And it was much more charting. And so they wanted us to see the same number of patients, but with this new EHR. And they had like a productivity person like follow me to see like what I could do to be more efficient. And they follow me and they're like, I don't know, like, you're pretty efficient. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
You're doing it for 10 years.
Well, I'm like, I can't see patients any faster than this. It's not possible. And so that was kind of like the last thing for me within a couple months of switching to that new EHR with the expectations being so high. And I really felt like, clinical care things were kind of falling through the cracks. I was like, I can't do this anymore, guys. So that was definitely like the biggest burnout for me.
Are you happy
with my DPC?
Yeah.
It's so much more rewarding. And I feel like I'm the physician that I want to be. And this holiday season, like I sent my personal Christmas card to all my families. Like I thought for like 2 seconds about doing another one, but I'm like, no, they know me. And like, they were also kind to me during the holidays, especially when it's like sick season and it's kind of like, a big time for a pediatrician. They were still like so patient, and being able to communicate with them directly and like check in via, our text messaging platform the next, couple of days later, like, hey, how's it going? Are we feeling any better? Oh, you're not, like, come on back in, I'll recheck it. Like, so different. And the patients are really grateful. And I say all the time about DPC, like happy patients, happy doc, like everybody just feels better.
It's so true. That's actually the thing I think surprised me the most because my worry was that patients would be expecting more because they're paying out of their pocket and that they would demand more. They would demand more time. And I have only experienced the opposite. Like my patients are super happy, thankfully.
Yeah.
And if anything, we feel like we have to reach out to them. Like, what else can I do for you? What else can I do for you? And it becomes reciprocated. And it's such a nice feeling as opposed to, understanding what the traditional patients experience, which is like, they have expenses, then they have to, waiting lines and, short visits, and then maybe lack of clarity because of that short visit. There's a million reasons why their experience is not that great. So
Yeah.
I only hear great things about your experience. So Dr. Hayes, tell me how people can connect to you or find you.
Sure. So my website is www.hayespeds.com. There's a contact information sheet that they can fill out there, and that'll get sent to my email, and then our office will follow up to, set up a meet and greet or whatever visit they need. Every time if someone's interested, though, in a membership, a meet and greet is usually how we start. Also, they can call or text the office phone number. It's 813-359-1884.
And I'm sure we'll provide that information at the bottom of this link. So that'll be good. And thank you so much for showing time for us and showing how your practice is. It sounds amazing. I think your patients are so lucky for you. So.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Outer Network Podcast. Shout out to my guide, Dr. Ryan Parker, who's probably listening. We miss you. See you soon. And looking forward to you guys joining us in the next podcast. And as always, shout it out from the rooftops. Join us next time.